Hi everyone, this is Nannette, and today I'm going to be talking about corruption in Montgomery County, and I am going to be naming names. So, before I get into a timeline of current events, I just want to do a real super quick background of how this started, which is an issue that legally I'm going to circle around to later, but for now the background doesn't matter so much other than to explain how I got here. So this is involving a property tax case, and it started when Tomball ISD started charging me a business property tax on a non-existent business in an empty house. I kept saying, this isn't mine. Well, when I figured out they were doing it, I couldn't figure out why I kept being in arrears. And later I found out it was because they were applying my tax money to this bogus account. And so I tried to get them to take it off. I tried to get the county to take it off, and nobody would do it. And finally they sued me, and by that time I was already doing research, and that's how we got into the first suit, which brings me up to our current timeline. So let's pop into that. So, after that happened, an order for tax sale was issued for my homestead. Now, this is where I lived, the house that I lived in, which is not even the address that they're claiming that this bogus business was in, but when the lawsuits started and I started researching and found out a few more things, I stopped paying altogether until this thing could be litigated through. So of course they wanted to seize all of my properties. Okay, whatever. So an order for tax sale was issued on my homestead by Judge Kristen Bays out of the 284th Judicial District in Montgomery County. Now, this happened when I was unconscious due to a disability, and the house was sold on December 3rd, 2019. So, by law, they can't not properly notice you, and they can't rule against you while you're unconscious due to a disability and take your house. That's just not lawful. But they did it anyway. So I didn't find out until April that the house had been sold, and then I was forced to vacate in June, which from April to June I was just in total shock. Stress makes my condition worse, so I was pretty unconscious during this time. And so I had to move out of my house, my home, even though this was a void judgment. And a void judgment should have never been followed. I did warn the sheriff and the constable that it was a void judgment, and I pointed them to the facts in the law that prove it was, but both the sheriff and the constable chose to ignore my warnings and follow this void court order and put me out of my house on June 2nd of 2020. So I moved to a rental house, and on November 4th of 2020, I lawfully redeemed the property per Texas Property Code. Now, let's go look real fast at how I did that, what the tax code was that I used to do that. Oops. Okay, I'm going to have to realign here just real quick. I don't know if I can. Hold on. Okay, that's better. Okay, so in Chapter 34 of the Texas Tax Code, Chapter 34, Section F, it says the owner of a real property sold at a tax sale may redeem the real property by paying the required amount as prescribed by this section to the assessor collector for the county in which the property was sold if the owner of the real property makes an affidavit stating, number one, that the period in which the owner's right of redemption must be exercised has not expired, and two, that the owner has made a diligent search in the county in which the property is located for the purchaser at the tax sale or for the purchaser at resale, and has failed to find the purchaser, that the purchaser is not a resident in the county in which the property is located, that the owner and the purchaser cannot agree on the amount of redemption money due, or that the purchaser refuses to give the owner a quitclaim deed of the property. Now, my case fell under the last two. Me and the purchaser could not agree on the amount of redemption money due, and therefore he was refusing to give me a quitclaim deed. So, an assessor collector who receives an affidavit and payment under Section F shall accept the assertions set out in the affidavit are true and correct. The assessor collector receiving the payment shall give the owner a signed receipt witnessed by two persons. The receipt, when recorded, is notice to all persons that the property described has been redeemed. So, that's what I did, because in a 9-month period, the purchaser was claiming that I owed, what did he say? Over $33,000 in redemption money. And what are those costs? So I flip back real quick to the property tax code. This is Texas Property Tax Code. We're still in the same section, or Chapter 34. We're just below F under G. And in Section 2, it's going to describe the cost that the purchaser could charge. Cost includes the amount reasonably spent by the purchaser for maintaining, preserving, and safekeeping the property, including the cost of property insurance, repairs or improvements required by local ordinance or building code, or by a lease of the property in effect on the date of the sale, discharging a lien imposed by a municipality to secure expenses in remedying a health or safety hazard on the property, dues or assessments for maintenance paid to the property's owners association, impact or standby fees imposed by other local government. So those are the only costs that he could charge, and he's going to say that in 9 months it incurred $33,000 worth of costs, that he then gets another 25% on top of that. So, that's absolutely unreasonable for safekeeping and insurance on this property. Now, let's look just real quick at the property we're actually talking about here. So, this is the property. What happened? Here we go. What happened? Hold on. Now, this is the property that we're talking about, and this top picture was taken when I finally came back and repossessed the home after redemption, but these pictures were taken as I was preparing to move out on that June 2020 eviction date. So this is what the home looked like as I was preparing to move out, finding that I had to leave. So it was a very well maintained home. It's not like it had a whole lot of maintenance costs. As a matter of fact, everything was under warranty and up to date. And then we'll talk about this little part right here where everything's missing in just a minute. But I just wanted you to get a little glimpse of the kind of home we're talking about here. You know, that they're claiming needed $33,000 in maintenance cost to bring it up to code or to sort it out, whatever. So let's jump over to the timeline of the current events and start naming some more names. So the first one we have is Judge Kristen Bays, who thinks it's perfectly okay to not give due process to people and to take their homesteads while they're unconscious for taxes that they don't even owe. But then as I said, I went ahead and I vacated the home because frankly I was too sick to figure any other way out of it at the time. Now, on November 4th of 2020, I went and did the redemption process that I just showed you in the code. And I did it per the property tax code. But when I tried to enter the property, the purchaser refused to let me enter. So I called the sheriff. I gave the sheriff my ownership papers from the county clerk of records. And still, he refused me entry, and he called the constable. The constable ordered me off of the property under threat of arrest, and told me that the only way I was getting back on the property was to file a forcible entry and detainer with the justice of the peace to regain entry, even though I told him no one lived in the home. Now, a forcible entry and detainer is done to evict somebody who lives in your home. I told him nobody lived in my home, but that didn't matter. So what happened was, this is Precinct 5. Chris Jones is the constable, and it was his deputy, Deputy Hazelwood, who threatened me with arrest after I presented him with papers showing that I had lawfully redeemed the property. Now remember, in the property code, it says that once you present that receipt, that's notice to all. So, you know, it wasn't okay for him to kick me off of the property. I had lawful right to be on the property. Now, I'm going to try and adjust this screen a little bit. Hold on. Now, keep in mind, everything I'm going to tell you in this video, I have documented proof of. So, there's nothing I'm telling you here that I cannot prove up. So, as of November 4th, 2020, the house was lawfully redeemed and was my home. Here it is in the end of April, and I still don't get to live in my home. So Constable Hazelwood told me the only way I was getting back on my property was to file this forcible entry. Well, since Constable Hazelwood was the only one who could prevent me from being in my home under threat of arrest, I did what he told me to do, even though lawfully it made no sense because nobody lived there. But I filed the forcible entry and detainer, and of course, it was denied by Judge Matt Masden. And I also spoke to Texas Representative Tom Oliverson's office, who told me that I didn't need to change the law. See, I had called them and I'd said, if this is not my property, if I lawfully redeemed it doing what this code told me, and if it should have been noticed to all, but nobody issued me a secondary deed, then maybe we should have the law changed or continued to say that upon that recording in the county clerk, I'm issued a deed. Well, when the purchaser bought it, Sal Wechter Inc., he got a constable's deed. So I was asking the JP, why can't you give me a deed? A constable's deed. You issued him a constable's deed, issue me a constable deed. I've redeemed it now. But the court refused, and just before I had court, the county attorney had called me, and he did mention that I should not have been forced off the property with the constable. Now, keep in mind, I said I have proof for every bit of this. So there's not a word that's coming out of my mouth that I don't have proof for. So the county attorney had said the constable should have never forced me off. And I said, of course, I know that because I lawfully redeemed it on November 4th. He should have let me back on. But I, was trying to do what the constable said to get back on my property because he's threatening to arrest me. So I spoke with the county attorney, I spoke with the county recorder, and the county recorder told me that as of November 4th, I was the lawful owner. So, on November 4th, I knew I was the lawful owner, but I left under an abundance of caution because I didn't want to get arrested and be wrong or have missed something. So that's when I went back and I called Tom Oliverson's office. I called, the county recorder. I looked at the law again. I spoke to the county attorney again. I did everything I knew to do to confirm that I was correct. And by January 19th, I was pretty certain that I should never have been forced off my property. I was pretty certain that I was right on November 4th. I should have been allowed lawful entry to my property. So on January 19th, I went to the property and I called the constable and I told him that I was entering the property and that he could come arrest me if he wanted to. And at that point, I retook possession of the home. The constable never came to arrest me. And when I got in, I found that the home had been destroyed, carpet had been ripped out, my food forest had been ripped out, there was property missing, and let's just hop back over to these pictures again and talk about just a little bit of what's missing. So, when a constable removes you from a property under Texas law, he is supposed to take everything that you leave behind and he's supposed to store it in a storage. Now, I have an industry witness. He's not going to be an expert witness, but he is going to be an industry witness who's ex-police chief, ex-law enforcement, who agrees that when the constable takes your things that you left behind, they take everything, including trash, and they put it all in a storage for you. Well, Deputy Constable Hazelwood decided not to do that, and my possessions are now missing. The purchaser says he threw them away, but I highly doubt that, because let's just take a quick look at some of the things that we're missing. Okay, first over here, I'm kind of ticked about this because right here, this little pole has a hook on it, and it was used to open up my attic, and they took it for some reason, even though Salwechter Inc. had no right to remove any property from the premises. These are all of the things that he removed unlawfully. So he took my little pole. I'm kind of mad about that. But he also took my pool table because we couldn't get it out in time. We had been moving for 2 weeks, and it had been raining on and off, and we just couldn't get trucks back in there. And I tried to get an extension on time so I could finish moving my things, but they just wouldn't let me. And so the last 30 hours up till move out time, we were moving steady for 30 hours straight because it had just been raining for 2 weeks. And we had been stopped too much. Not to mention, it's a very large house. I had another household in it from a previous business, plus I had a lot of business stuff, plus I had my dad's inheritance, and it had all kind of landed on me, and I had a lot of things stored, and so there was just a lot of stuff. So, he took my sign, from my food forest. As a matter of fact, he bulldozed the whole food forest. He even changed the topography of my land. And I'll show you that right here. See, I have these berms and these swales. So these swales would collect water, and I have several of them that you don't see. Here's one over here. Here's another one. There's another one further up this direction over here. And then this is the bottom one. And they're these berms, and then they have these swales, and he went in and took out all the trees, all the vegetation, the plants, and bulldozed the berms back into the swales. So all of that topography, all of that land work I had done and paid for was gone. He took entire buildings. This whole building right here is gone. Now, inside that building was about a $10,000 compressor, which we see right here, and the whole building was wired up and rigged up with equipment to support the function of this compressor. It was used in a previous business, and so you can see how much work was done on this building, the expert work that was done to put in all the wiring and the extra components, the extra dryers and condensers and gauges that we put to go with it. The extra power. We had a cabinet in there where you could store extra tools and a writing surface. Everything here is gone. We had the Phase-O-Matic. That's gone. And then this is actually the compressor, what it is, so people who see this will know. This was a $10,000 compressor. And then we can see on here how many hours this compressor had on it. It had less than 1,000 hours, which anybody who knows anything about compressors will tell you that's nothing. This building, which I was going to move over to be, it was going to be my new well house. And so that was going to be moved to put over my well before the winter, and that didn't happen, and my well got frozen. But this whole building is gone as well. So now my well house is gone too. And then just little things like my wheelbarrow. Now this building, everything in this building is gone. And you can see these are 2 8-foot long work tables that are stacked one on top of the other. They're 3-shelf, all wood work benches that are 4 by 8 long. Those are gone. All the boxes on them are gone. All the boxes that were stored in here. Exercise equipment, you know, what is that you hang upside down? Floor mats. I mean, it was just a variety of things in here. That's more pictures of the tables and some shelving that was in there. Here's a custom door that, you know, it's just gone. It's custom. It ain't like I can go buy a new one. All of these boxes, this green box and all of these boxes that were behind this box where this table is, were full of things for like an apothecary, containers. And here's more pictures of what the custom door was. It was for the laundry room. Back here you see all of these shelving units that were industrial shelving units. There were lots of the extra heavy duty ones. Now those are the ones like in Lowe's that their product shelves are on. Over here you see 1, 2, 3, 4 tables brand new in a box, and there was one in front of the other green box a minute ago, so that's 5 brand new tables in a box. These are all law books, Texas code, annotated, the whole set in here gone. Dishes, brand new, still in the box. Faucets, these are 2 faucets, one on top of the other, brand new, never opened. This is a closet system by Alpha, more medium duty shelving stuff. This is the Alpha closet system that you just saw there. This is a $4,000 system from Alpha that I got at the Container Store. So you can show them this, check with them. This is $4,000 right there. I don't know, maybe they've come down these days, but I doubt it. Anyway, I had washer parts to my Maytag because you weren't going to be able to get them anymore, and I suppose you can't now because that's why I bought the extras, so that I would have my Maytag for another 30 years, but that's gone now. You can see more of this medium duty shelving, and then exercise equipment that they said was junk. You can see it still had the tag on it. They're brand new. They never been used. They still had the fake tags on the faces of them. So, yeah, these had never been used at all. All of these. More stuff that was in my garage. So, you can see this wasn't junk that was thrown away. These were buildings, these were possessions, these were expensive items, and they just threw it all away. So let's go back to the timeline anyway. So I left. I came back on November 4th. The constable ordered me out. I checked with everyone I could, made certain I was right, and on January 19th, I came back to the property, and that's when I found carpet was missing, the food forest was destroyed, repairs were made on things that did not need or warrant repair. For example, in the room where the exercise equipment was stored, there was an air conditioner there because it used to be a gym, and then I changed it to a storage room. So the air conditioner in there never had worked since I'd lived here. And because he thought he was going to get this home on 2 acres, he thought he was going to get this 2 acres and everything that was left behind, the pool table, the compressor, all the other stuff. He thought he was going to get all of this for $75,000 in a beautiful neighborhood. And when I went and redeemed the property, he didn't like that I had redeemed it. So he tried to charge me for all of the things he did to the property when he thought he was going to get to keep it and I wasn't going to get to redeem it. So now he wants his costs back for putting in air conditioners that didn't need to be put there, for tearing out my food forest, for tearing out my carpet. He wants to be paid for all of that. And I'm not having any part of it. I paid what the code said to pay. I paid $101,650 in cash to get my house back. And that over $26,000 that he made off of that in the 9 months was not enough profit for this man off of one property. He wanted to be greedier than that. What he wanted was a $750,000 home for $75,000. And it's not happening. I may have been sick before, and I may have been unconscious and lost my house, but I'm awake now, and I've redeemed the home. And just because he wants more money than he's allowed by law is no reason for me to be kept out of my home. So on January 19th, 2021, I went back and I retook possession. Before I could move in, I had to replace the carpet and make a couple other repairs. There were just a lot of stupid things that he did to tear up the home. But then on February 2nd, I was finally able to move in. Now, by then, Salwechter Inc. had already filed a lawsuit suing me for $100,000 in costs. Now, how he could have $100,000 in cost on a house is that well maintained, I have no idea. But it certainly wasn't lawful. I don't have to pay for him tearing up my food forest and tearing out my carpet and throwing away, stealing, selling, doing whatever happened with my property. I don't have to pay him for that. But regardless, he decided to sue me for another $100,000. Now, I responded to the lawsuit and I filed a countersuit. And then he filed a restraining order and a temporary injunction to keep me from moving into or occupying and owning the property. So by that time, I was already back living in it. And in order to get me out, you'd have to file a forcible entry and detainer. And you have no grounds because I own the property. I lawfully redeemed the property. I got my receipt from the assessor collector. I filed my paper with the recorder. I did everything I was supposed to do. However, Judge Vincent Santini out of the 457th in Montgomery County chose to ignore the law and to force me to move from my home. So now they have my money and my home. So I have a house that I've paid for twice in cash, and I can't live in the home. So now I've moved out again, and as you can see, I didn't finish my little list before I started making this video. But we're currently in court. I have a countersuit for all my damages, and at this point, Judge Vincent Santini is keeping me from entering my property. He's ordered me off of my property. He granted an injunction and ordered me to leave. The court date was on March 11th, and it gave me 21 days to be out. So, that would have meant by April 1st. And they have no lawful right to make me move from my property because it's my home. The county clerk agrees it's my home and it's in my name. As far as I know or understand, Texas Rep. Oliverson, Tom Oliverson's office believes that it's my property and I shouldn't have to do anything else. Apparently, the county recorder believed it. They've got the property in my name. Montgomery County Appraisal District lists me as the taxpayer. So, I don't know how Judge Vincent Santini thinks that he can ignore all of the law and say that rather than me following Texas Property Code, that I was engaging in self-help, and that the clerk of the county and the assessor collector, I guess he's saying that they've defrauded me out of my money by pretending that I had valid documents when I didn't. I guess that's anybody's call to guess what he was thinking there, but he said it wasn't a lawful redemption when the assessor collector and the clerk both said it did. So that means, somebody's pulling some kind of okie doke. And we all read the law and what it says, and the affidavit I made said just that. But Santini's problem with it was that I used the word acknowledged instead of sworn to. So the Supreme Court, and this is in my court documents, the Supreme Court says that it's not so much the verbiage, but the content and intention. So the assessor collector accepted it as a proper affidavit. The county recorder accepted the receipt as proper and lawful. Apparently, the county attorney sees that it's proper and lawful, but Judge Santini chose to take away my homestead for a second time. So I had to again move out of my home. I'm currently in a rental, and I'm currently having to litigate for a house that I've paid for twice. So, these are people that you're going to have to vote for in the future. And I hope you keep in mind their actions. First off, Judge Kristen Bays should have never taken my homestead. It's unlawful. Number two, she didn't even have a case presented before her. The whole proceeding was unlawful because the plaintiff never had jurisdiction to proceed anyway. I did challenge jurisdiction in that case, and when you challenge jurisdiction, everything should stop. But, Judge Kristen Bays chose to not give due process and to take my homestead, and to do so while I was unconscious, and to not rehear the case. And, And then Constable Chris Jones allowed his deputy, Hazelwood, to kick me off of a property I had lawfully redeemed, and to keep me from that property for months. Then Judge Santini chose to kick me out of that property a second time, which I had by then lawfully redeemed. So keep that in mind when you go to the polls. Who's doing what? Remember, I can prove everything in this video, and I'm working diligently to add some links in the description box so that you can see for yourself all of this proof. But I don't want this video to run. It's run about at least 10 minutes longer than I wanted to, and I don't want to run on any more. But I will be doing updates, and I just wanted to do some background and some, who's done what up to this point. Because at this point, I'm sitting out of my house that I paid for twice, and I'm saying, I should be allowed back in without fear that somebody is going to follow Santini's unlawful orders and come and put me out. And I'm not sure that until we're done through the court system that I can feel safe, because these guys just do whatever they want. They put me out the first time under a void order, even though I warned them that they were void orders. I showed them in the law how they were void orders and why they were void orders, and they chose to follow them anyway and put me out the first time. Then they chose to ignore my redemption and threaten me with arrest the second time. So on the third time, I didn't want to risk losing any more of my private property. So I chose to take my private property and move by the date that Judge Vince Santini had set, just in case they came and unlawfully took me out again. I didn't want to lose my possessions. So that's where we sit. Here it is, almost May. I don't know when I'm going to post this video, but I will tell you today's date is April 30th. So, we're a day away from May, and I'm still not back in my property. Meanwhile, I'm losing money on my rentals. So I wanted to name names and let the voters of Montgomery County know, who's who and who's doing what. I have tried to get Sheriff Henderson to protect my rights. So far, to this point, he has not. He has refused. He claims to be a constitutional attorney, yet he refuses to ignore void default judgments that steal people's homesteads away from them unlawfully. So, doesn't look too constitutional to me, but we'll see what he does on this latest round. I did not trust him to protect me from the constable putting me out, since he was there on November 4th, or his deputy was there on November 4th. That's who I called, was the sheriff, but the sheriff called the constable, and it was the constable that put me out. So, Hazelwood threatened me with arrest. So, is Rand Henderson going to step up and be the constitutional sheriff that he claims to be? I don't know. Time will tell. So far, he has not. Will he in the future? We'll see. So far, has Matt Masden held his oath to his office? I do not believe so. So far, has Vincent Santini held his oath to office? I don't believe so. Has Judge Kristen Bays kept her oath of office? I do not believe so. I do not believe that anybody involved in this case and this situation has kept their oath of office. I do believe there's corruption to pull all the hijinks that were pulled in Judge Santini's court, to allow another attorney to testify, for Judge Santini himself to testify from the bench, for Judge Santini to say disparaging things about my home to therefore make me look bad, and even to rule as he did. Those were all gross violations of the Constitution and canons, ordinary canons of law. He should have known better, and I do believe he did know better. But that's up for the voters to decide, and that's why I wanted to make this video, so that you could have the names, what precincts they're in, what their jobs are, and what they're doing. Now, I will say this. The clerks have been extremely helpful to me. They've been very nice and very professional and done the best job they know to do. They are dealing with some issues that they haven't been presented with before. So it probably has been a little bit confusing for them. And, you know, I'm just very grateful for the help that they've given me from all the clerk's office, from the county court clerk to the county clerk of records. All of them have been very good and very helpful, and I do appreciate that. So, you know, the only ones I have a problem with are the ones who are ignoring their oaths and commonly established canon of law. So, you know, we do have a constitution that protects our private property rights, that protects our due process, and these judges think they can ignore that. And us as voters, we have to look at the evidence that's presented to us and make our own minds up. So just as quick as I can, I'm going to try to get you some links to prove up my case. For those of you who know how to look up legal records, you should be able to easily find these cases. Tomball ISD versus NannetteCarley, and then you'll find those in Harris and Montgomery counties, and then you'll also find, you know, the Sal Wechter Inc. case against me and my counterclaim against him, for those of you who know how to look those up. For the rest of you, I'm going to be trying to post all the documented proof just as quick as I can. It's not real easy because I am still battling a case, and, you know, I've got to get back in my house and get some recovery made. So I've still got some work ahead of me, but I did want to inform the voters of this county about what's going on. I think it's important. Also equally important is for you guys to know that what's happening here is, you know, probably part of a bigger picture of a practice called asset stripping, which is happening nationwide. And it's happening mostly to divorced, widowed, or otherwise single females. A lot of times elderly, also happening to men, but more often to women. So it might be something you want to look into as well, asset stripping, because it's coming to a home near you soon. So that's why I want to make the public aware, and, these people who don't want to keep their oaths of office, let's get them out. Okay, so thanks for listening, and I'll be back with updates hopefully soon.